Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the flight conference. This is the physician assistant panel. We have 3 panelists today, and we can get started by introductions. So Aubrey, would you like to begin?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Aubrey. I am a first-year PA student at Marshall B. Ketchum, so that's in Fullerton, California, so not too far. And I went to school at SDSU for my undergrad, and I graduated in 2019 with a bachelor in kinesiology pre-PT. And I don't know if you want me to, if that's good, or you want me to go into good? Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marian. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. I did my undergrad at UC Riverside, and I am a new grad PA, just graduated from Charles Drew University of Medicine and Science.
Awesome. And Peter, feel free to leave in the chat if you need some time. I guess we can start off with the first question, and if Peter messages me, we'll come back to him. But our first question is, what exactly is a physician assistant, and who should consider being on the pre-PA path and the profession itself?
So, well, maybe not everyone knows, but a physician assistant is a healthcare provider that can treat, diagnose, manage acute, non-acute patients. You see physician assistants in every subspecialty. They can practice across the board. We do have autonomy with the profession. And what was the other question you were saying?
And who should consider being a physician assistant and embarking on the pre-PA path?
If you have a passion for medicine, obviously, and if you want to be a team player, because I feel like, as a physician assistant, you're going to be working with a lot of physicians, nurses. It's a team-based approach to healthcare. Like I said, we are autonomous and can do a lot as well. But if you are the team player, then I feel like this is a great profession for you.
And it's also a unique profession because you can change specialties. I'm sure everybody's pre-PA or in the medical field knows that you have lateral mobility, which means you can switch specialties. So that's a really great thing about it. I personally like that. I did my patient care experience in a bunch of different things. So I like the idea that possibly one day I can work, in whatever specialty, and then maybe pick up weekend shifts at the urgent care or something like that. So that is a flexibility in your schedule, especially when you're a new grad and you're trying to pay off loans. You can pick up different different shifts and different specialties if they allow that and make money like that. But obviously it's more than money, but that's a really cool thing about it is you can, if you're interested in multiple things and specializing sounds a little scary for you, you can delve into different parts of medicine, try to see which one is best fit to you.
Thank you. Yeah, Peter, do you want to introduce yourself and then answer that question? Oh, Peter, you're muted. No worries. No, we still can't hear you. Try now. Okay, we can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, my bad.
No worries.
So yeah, I'm Peter. I'm from Dallas. I'm a physician assistant, 2 years in GI. What was the question?
The question is, who should be considering the pre-PA profession? And, if you want to explain a bit more about what a PA does in the healthcare field.
I think a good fit for people that want to join the physician assistant thing is someone that has a passion for medicine, right? I mean, this is a long haul. This is a marathon, right? So you really got to stick it out and know that medicine is tough. It's a lifelong journey. You're still learning. I'm still learning. 2 years out of grad school, and so with that, I mean, you got to be a team player. I think someone mentioned that too, because you're not. I mean, you're working under the supervision of a doctor in collaboration, more so, I would say. And so, you know, sometimes you have more autonomy than not. Sometimes you take the back seat. Whether you're the pertinent person in the person's care or something like that on the team. So, I mean, it's very dynamic what we do and whatnot. So it's exciting, it's rewarding, but there is a lot of time and effort and studying that you put into this profession.
Yeah, thank you. I think that was a great introduction into the profession. So diving into more about your prep and going into the job itself, how did you obtain your patient care experience or just be experienced within the healthcare? I guess we can start with Marian.
So right out of undergrad, I got my patient care experience. So I took an EMT course and became an EMT. I worked as a EMT for about 3.5 years. I also did that simultaneously with scribing, and I thought that was it was great to see both aspects, to be able to have that hands-on patient care as well as be in the emergency room and be able to pick the brains of like the physicians I was working with and to be able to understand medicine a little bit better. So I think to me doing that simultaneously really like sealed the deal for me that I wanted to like pursue medicine. And then I feel like being a scribe really has like helped me along the way, especially like through PA school and now like being a new grad, like, being able to like chart and document is very big. So I felt like that was really great exposure. I also volunteered a lot. I volunteered with Global Links, which is a community-based organization based in Pittsburgh. It was to pretty much help like package medical like supplies that were like donated from like hospitals or facilities to like, countries in need. I was also a clinical care extender. So I was a volunteer for about 2 years and I did that in undergrad. And I volunteered a lot at like, various like health fairs because I was a part of an organization called the Association of Black Women Physicians, and they would host a lot of like different health career like fairs or like different ways to engage the community. And like I would go out and like take vitals and do like little things just to like stay active and engaged. And yeah, that was like most of my experience. I also worked a little bit in clinical research. So I took a little of a trajectory. It took a while for me to like get into PA school, but I wanted to make sure I was making, the best decision for myself and choosing something that was going to be the right fit. So I'm more of a non-traditional student. I didn't go like straight out of undergrad into applying to PA school, but I definitely took some time off, but I feel like I made the best decision for me.
So for me, it was a little different. I actually decided on the PA route my freshman year. So I first started with volunteering just to kind of dip my toes in it, see if I could even work with patients before I kind of full-fledged went into it. So I did volunteer physical therapy aid. It was actually a clinic on my campus and it was really hands-on. We were student-led. So we were one-on-one with the patient and we were in charge of everything. We created their exercise routine. We did soap notes. We were the one that worked with them. So it was really good, super hands-on experience for me to see if I can work with patients. And so once I decided that and, solidified that PA was for me, I went and got my CNA certification. So I did that the summer between my freshman and sophomore year. So I did that, and then I worked only during the summers. I didn't want to work during the school year just because I wanted to focus on GPA, because that is so much harder to raise than it is to get patient care experience. I'm sure many people can attest to that. So I did that during this, only during the summers, and then I volunteered at the PTA for my entire undergrad during the semesters. And then I also did the MDA summer camp. So that was working one-on-one with, you're paired with a kid with muscular dystrophy and you help them through summer camp. And part of that was patient care. Half of it was volunteer, but part of it was patient care because you're doing a lot of CNA-like activities. And then I did something similar to the COPE Health Scholar internship down in San Diego. It's Palomar Pathmaker. So it's the same thing. I did a lot of CNA-like duties. One fun thing that I didn't think I would do on an internship is I bagged my first dead body. So that was a really cool experience. So if you're in either of those, LA for COPE Health or San Diego for the Pathmaker, I really recommend those. And then I also did, after I graduated, I became a medical scribe. So just like Marion said, that is such a great experience. I feel really comfortable with documenting. I felt a little bit more comfortable going into taking histories from patients because I've heard those kinds of questions over and over. And I was familiar with the language that you put in on the documentation and, things you ask. So I think that is a really great experience, but I always recommend, like Marion said, getting hands-on experience either at the same time or before. So I wouldn't do scribing as your full experience because being hands-on with a patient is so much different than just hearing or seeing the interaction and scribing it. So you want to make sure that you have, if you want to do scribing, you have that experience too. But that was by far my favorite experience. And then I applied and got in. So I got in after, it was like a few months after I graduated from undergrad. So it's a little bit of a different journey.
Peter, how about you?
Wow, y'all did a whole lot. I'm a little bit removed, I feel like, even though 2 years is not too long, but I got the bulk of my experience doing pharmacy technician work. So the caveat on that is, I think it's very school dependent how they take in that specific hours with being a pharm tech. But so I went to UT Southwestern based in Dallas, and so they accepted that as like hands-on experience, what have you. Some schools that I applied for didn't. So I did that, and that was a lot. That was like almost 2 years worth of experience right there. And then I did like PT tech helping too. So that helped because I was hands-on. I will say in hindsight, I did wish like these fabulous students right here, all of that is actually like fundamental and far off better in PA school. With that said, I think if I can interject and throw shadowing in there, like stuff like this, but also shadowing a real life PA, and seeing what their day to day is and seeing if you can envision yourself doing that for the next 5-10 years at least, and really getting to establish that relationship with them and seeing, what regrets they have, what they would do differently, and like getting asking those meaningful questions. I think that experience, along with it boosting up your resume because you have shadowing hours, would be a benefit to you to see if you're a fit for this profession.
Great, thank you so much. I think that offers a lot of people. Sorry, Peter's okay. It's a little laggy, but that offers a lot of ideas for those who are exploring different HCE and PC opportunities. So my next question is, did you always know that you wanted to be a PA, and what professions did you consider before, and why did you ultimately commit to the PA path?
No, I didn't actually know what a PA was until my junior year of college, which was actually like astounding to me because they had a health career conference at my school. I went to UC Riverside, and I just decided to sit in on a panel kind of similar to this, but it was in person. And, it was a panel of about like 4 PAs, and they were just talking about like their journeys. And I was astounded because I had no one tell me that about the PA profession. At the time, I was probably like 2010-ish. And I was like, I had no idea that PAs even existed, right? And so I was on the trajectory to go to medical school. Like I had taken all the courses I literally took the physics, the OChem, I did it all. And I was like, I want to go to medical school. And then when I found out about the PA profession, I was like, I think this is more up my alley. So it was literally the end of my junior year that I decided to like change courses a little bit. And so like I had to ultimately take a couple more classes because I didn't have some of the prereqs, but I decided to do that after the fact. And I think what Peter hit the nail on the head was shadowing, right? Because I was lucky to find somebody to shadow like right after undergrad who I shadowed for quite some time. And like he was my mentor and took me under his wing. And like if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have like, really wanted to pursue this even more. So yeah, like I found out about the profession late, but I feel like, with time, like the PA profession is obviously like, grown tremendously, being #1 profession in US News and World Report this past year. It's like a lot of people are starting to, find out about the profession and know who we are, which is great. So I think that, I think early, like finding things out a little bit early, you definitely can have the trajectory to get to where you need to be. But even if you don't find out early and you're like a little bit later, like I did, you can still get there. It's just a matter of time. So.
Yeah, so I knew from undergrad. I actually, funny enough, my NP that I saw for years, she suggested it when I was in high school, like my high school, like senior year. I kind of had an idea, but I didn't know the extent of what PAs can do and whatnot once I researched it. And then I joined the pre-PA club at San Diego State, and I had heard a PA talk. I realized, how much the profession really like spoke to me, and my goals in life really aligned with what PAs do, and the work-life balance and all that kind of stuff. So ultimately, I was never pre-med. I know that's a question I get a lot. I was never pre-med. Like I said, it was always pre-PA. And ultimately, I just liked the fact that I can get out there sooner and not only start my life sooner, but also be out there in clinics and seeing patients sooner. That was a really cool thing for me. I love school. So schooling was never a thing. I know when people argue like, oh, you just don't want to take the time for med school. I'm like, I love school. I would love to be a professional student. But every time I'm drowning in school and I get like a patient interaction, that makes me so excited. So that I can't wait to be able to get out there and do that, because that is what helps with like the burnout or getting tired of the medical stuff of it. Being with patients and helping them was so cool. And the fact I get to do that early is nice. But there's also so much more to me than just my career. And there's so many things in my life that I want to do. Traveling, all those fun things. And to me, being able to start out sooner, start having like financially supporting myself sooner, and not have to be in as much debt and all of that just made sense to me. Because there's a lot of things I want to do in life. And to me, the idea of going to school for like longer or, other professions, I think this one just aligned better with what I want to do.
That's great. Yeah. How about you, Peter? Did you always know that you wanted to be a PA, and what professions did you consider before, but what made you ultimately decide on PA?
I would say I was that kid that wanted to be pre-med and a doctor in the future, but during like the middle of my undergraduate year, I just realized that the PA profession was a better fit for me because I wasn't willing to accept that debt burden. 200, 300K in the ruts, like in debt is it's a lot to fathom. And then the amount of schooling that it would take and time away from myself and what I want to do and what I enjoy. Much like what Aubrey was talking about, like, I like to travel as well, and I want to do more of that. And not that you can't do it as a doctor, but I mean, sometimes you just got to find your way to that end point and work your way backwards. So I figured, as a PA, I can still do what I want to do ultimately, and that was practice medicine. I mean, the question was, the debt burden, how long I was willing to sacrifice my time and be in school. And also, I think the hierarchy of things too. It mattered to me as much as it might matter to other people more, that I have to be the doctor, and technically I would have the last say and things like that. I mean, to some it really does matter. To me, I mean, I'm pretty chill. Like that doesn't really bother me. And on a side note, I mean, you should find a job or an employer, a team that allows for collaboration and some, a good amount of autonomy and stuff too. But anyways, yeah, I just kind of teased out what matters to me most, and the PA profession kind of was that, perfect fit for me in that sense. So less debt burden, right? I mean, like from 200, 300K to about 100K on average. You're making six figures, which is, I think it's a great amount of income, decent to either start off with or, be comfortable with maybe the rest of your life, I hope. If not, then you might have a spending problem. But yeah, and there's a lot of flexibility and options with it. So I don't think I wouldn't go back and change anything. I'm 2 years out, and there is no regrets that I picked and made the right choice by being a PA in that sense. And
Wow.
I think a lot of people like us, I mean, we're young and we have that wanderlust too. So I think that's why the PA profession is really vibing with people, if you ask me.
Yeah. So, talking about vibing, the profession, vibing with people, and Marion mentioned that it's usually ranked number one profession. If not one, it's always in the top three. So what makes you think that this profession is so incredibly ranked high? And where do you see this profession going within the next decade, especially after how much the pandemic has shaped these healthcare careers?
I think we stepped up. Like we really stepped up and filled in those voids and gaps. Um, I think that just like boosted our like our title and who we are as a profession. Like people knew us, right? We were helping to take care of people, in the ER and whatnot. Our urgent care colleagues and whatnot too. I mean, we're also helping to administer the COVID vaccine and whatnot. So um, I don't think we're going anywhere. I think if anything that helped. I mean, that's a double-edged sword too. I'm sure a lot of our colleagues are overworked, right? Burnt out, maybe even underpaid as well in that sense. So, but I think um, to answer part one of your question too, why we are number one, it's those things that I mentioned, right? The low debt burden. I mean, medical school, PA school, tuition in general, it's only going to rise, right? I mean, I don't see any signs of tuition being lessened and school being more affordable. Okay, so how much of that burden can you handle too? You don't want to wait around for the government to help you out with that, right? I mean, even, Biden, whether you're for him or against him, like the bureaucracy moves slowly. Okay, so be mindful of that because you're left with that burden at the end of the day. And then the pay too with being a PA. I tell people just ballpark it at 100K, right? I mean, you're making six figures, and there's room to grow too. And you can depending on what specialty you want to choose to. I mean, there definitely is room to make a lot more money than just 100,000. So you're living comfortably too. And then the options that I mentioned, so you can lateralize too. We all know that, right? So you can switch specialties. Might not always be easy, but you have that option too. And so I've also seen PAs that are taking sabbaticals too, right? I mean, you spend just like maybe 30 months of your life in school and then you're making good money. And if you want to take a break, you don't have to wait till retirement or something like that. Go ahead and take your sabbatical. You're probably doing well in life already. So that's why I think we're number one, in my opinion.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of Peter, I think we're gonna stay at the top for a little while. And I agree. I definitely think the pandemic opened the eyes of the world to who we really are and how we're here to stay and make an impact. So I also think that work-life balance as a PA, I haven't started working yet, but I'm gonna start soon. But I think what was important for me was work-life balance, right? And that was part of one of the reasons why I decided to switch to becoming a PA, because when I shadowed my mentor, I saw that he had a great work-life balance, and it wasn't like I didn't have friends who were physicians or who I didn't know anyone in the medical field. Like my older brother's a doctor, right? So I just feel like, but it took him like a long time to get to where he is now. And, you know, his work-life balance wasn't always there. He couldn't just up and travel whenever he wanted, or I'm not saying like every PA can do that, but I'm just saying like the ones that I've been around have seemed to like been able to manage it a little bit better and been able to like do the things that they want to do. So I honestly think within the next 10 years, you're going to see more of us. As far as like lawmaking goes and like autonomy, I know there's like a big push for like, you know, like optimal team practice and things like that. That's been like, you know, has been on like the radar for quite some time. I don't really know. I feel like that's going to be on a state by state basis. But, you know, I feel like with more lobbying and more time, and, you know, we probably can get that autonomy that, you know, some other professions have, but it kind of just will depend. We'll see how things go. But I feel like within the next 10 years, you'll definitely see more of us for sure.
I was going to say, just I think this has made PAs more visible. And even I see like on TikTok, funny enough, people talking about what PAs are, you know, even younger people understanding more what PAs are. And there's, when I was working as a scribe, we barely had to explain what a PA was. Most of them were like, oh yeah, I'd love to see the PA. So it's cool to see the PAs becoming more known and people kind of know what they're doing. And then another thing, how Marian was talking about lobbying, I think like along with social media and stuff, bringing attention to these issues, like how PAs can't prescribe the diabetic footwear under like Medicare, I think it's Medicare, just stuff like that. Even people in my class went to a Zoom meeting with Congress members and talked to them about it and were lobbying. So just participating in that, I think a lot of people are interested in doing that. And since the PA profession is new, we have a lot of like, I think, freedom to do those types of things. And there's a lot of roles for people to speak up and to advocate for the profession. So I think I know so many people who are already stepping up to do that, even as PA students and pre-PAs. So I think people like that are what make our profession so strong, and are really putting our voice out there and, you know, sharing to the world and the government and medical community and stuff how important PAs are. And I think that's just going to continue as we have more and more people with loud voices who are saying great things. So like you said, I think PAs are here to stay. And I've got that question asking, oh, do you think NPs are going to take over PAs? And I'm like, no, they're separate entities. They have their own, you know, governing bodies, all of that. I think PAs are going to excel just like NPs are going to excel. I don't think anybody's going to take over anybody. I think we're all going to do great and work together as a team. That's what we do.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I think that also highlights how the dynamic of PAs and the relationships among the entire team is not just the PA or the MD treating, but it's an entire collective. So shifting gears a bit, how is PA school different from undergrad? I know, Aubrey, you were the youngest, like the earliest in the career of the PA path, and Marian's a recent grad. So how is it different from undergrad? And do you have any tips on surviving as we traverse this, especially during the pandemic now? I know a lot of pre-PA kids are pretty anxious about obtaining HCAs, so.
I mean, I could answer. I'm all online, so that's why it's kind of hard when people ask for this advice, because I'm totally online in PA school, and that's not traditional unless you go to the Yale online program with a few online PA programs out there. But in terms of studying, I know a lot of people come in and they change their study ways or whatever. I actually happen to do the same exact thing. I tried doing those really cute color-coded study guides that you see everywhere that would be helpful, and that completely failed for me, and I just stuck to what I did in undergrad. But a lot of times you do have to kind of switch up your study methods or try to, you know, figure out what works best for you, especially because for me, I've noticed PA school is a lot of information, but a lot of it is surface level type information sometimes, and it's just a huge amount of it. Whereas undergrad, sometimes you got into the nitty gritty. So it's just kind of a switching your mindset, and like I'm thinking more clinically versus trying to figure out every process of everything in case I'm asked about it on a test. I'm trying to think, okay, well, what are the signs and symptoms of this disease? So it's kind of a different mindset. You're studying different things and you have to work your mind differently. And I think especially in PA school, having like patient assessments and stuff as we go on and have like fake patients come in some days, I realize that I'm studying to not just pass a test, but to actually treat people. And I need to know this information. I can't just get by on a multiple choice test. I need to know this to help people one day. So I think it's just a different kind of motivation and pressure. And also in undergrad, I'm sure everyone can relate, you're always working to be the most competitive applicant. You're always doing something. Oh, I need to do this volunteering. Oh, I need to do this patient care so I can, you know, get into PA school. But like once you're in PA school, generally, this is your full-time job and you're studying for your future and your career. You're not trying to one-up anybody. You're trying to just focus on that. So I think it was funny enough, I think not that PA school is easier, obviously it has its own challenges, but I think it's a different kind of pressure and it's a little less, you're not always feeling like you need to be 100%, you can take a few days off if you have time and relax versus I always felt in undergrad like I needed to do 20 things at once to get into school, which I'm sure everybody could relate to when you're pre-PA. But yeah, it's just a different kind of stress.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Aubrey. It is definitely a different kind of stress. I would also say that be open and figure out what your learning style is. When I was an undergrad, I kind of was just going with the flow and just like memorizing and just like, taking whatever I could into this test, right? But like Aubrey said, like PA school is like a whole different vibe because it's a lot more information and some of it is nitty gritty details that you have to know, like, you know what I'm saying? So, and this is just not exactly what Aubrey said. It's not just to pass a test, it's to treat a patient, right? So I think the biggest thing that changed for me was figuring out my learning style before I even started PA school. I found out that I was like a very like visual auditory learner. And so like I incorporated those same tactics like in PA school any way I could, like, going to lecture, listening to a podcast, or like, listening to my lectures, or on my way to rotations, listening to something, right? And just that repetition in any way, shape, or form. If I could draw a picture and explain it to you, or if I can talk to you, if I can teach it to you, that's how I know I really know it, right? So I think it's not being afraid to change up your learning style, because it's not going to be the simple, oh, like, I just got to memorize these terms and I'll pass the test. Like I wish it were that simple, right? There's certain things like, yeah, you're going to have to just memorize, but it's more about understanding concepts and being able to like always be able to relay back to those concepts, right? You start off with pathophysiology, you kind of just build from there. So I think my biggest piece of advice from undergrad to like PA school, what I would tell myself is to like not be afraid of change, right? Because like I feel like in undergrad we kind of study like a certain way and we're able to get by, but PA school, like those same tactics may not work. So it's like you might have to change things up a little bit to be able to understand things a little bit better, but don't be afraid of that.
I think they did a great job of explaining all that, undergrad to PA school. I totally endorse all that. I mean, but yeah, like I said, the journey doesn't stop. Even from undergrad to PA school, I think what they basically said is like it means it's a steep, learning curve from undergrad to PA school, and then it's going to be a steep learning curve from PA school after you graduated and then working as a new grad. Okay, people were telling me like 6 months to a year. I mean, it might be a little rough, but it gets easier along that path. And like I said, I'm like 2 years out, but I still have to reference, and I use my phone a lot too. Or I use it often. I'll look up stuff on UpToDate or Hippocrates to refresh my mind if I need to. And sometimes it's like on the spot as I'm rounding with my patients or rounding on patients. I'll look up stuff on my phone, or sometimes I will step out the room just to kind of look up something as well. So I'm just saying, like, the learning really never stops. You know what I mean? It's definitely um, part of the profession, and because medicine is also evolving too, just like we're learning about COVID in real time right now too.
Thank you. We have a question from the chat. It's by Daniela. Do you all foresee the PA profession thriving in the shift to telemedicine in the future?
I guess I can answer that. I definitely do. I think I mean, we've given the patients the opportunity for telemed. I feel like it'd be messed up to take it back. The only thing is, it's the fight against insurance to have that approved. But I think telemedicine will have a more prominent presence going into medicine in this modern age now, right? It's a lot more convenient, and especially if it's the low acuity, medication refill, or, you know, your basic, maybe it's a UTI or something like that, or, you know, like uncomplicated diverticulitis, something like that. I think it could be handled through telemed. And so yeah, it's right now, at least I know with what I'm going through, it's now insurance is saying, no, we won't color telehealth. But I think as we move forward and there's a big push for it, like I said, we just gave it out to the population, right? It's just like us giving out like Medicaid or Medicare, like it's accessible for everyone now. You can't just like take it back because that's messed up. And that's my opinion.
The one thing that I can see, I guess I can see like the low acuity stuff, definitely it's sticking with telehealth, but funny enough, you'll realize, like, especially like family medicine, older patients, not even just a technology issue, because that's a whole other story, but a lot of times their visits to them are like therapy. So I can see it for maybe like younger generation or like, you know, people who are good with technology and whatnot, but the older generation, they like to come in and talk and show what they've been doing with their, you know, with their woodworking and their art. They like to talk a lot. So some patients just will not want to do telemedicine. So I think it will definitely, I mean, obviously I'm not working right now, I'm not a PA, but when my time as a scribe, we did do telemedicine quite often. Our providers had at least like 4 telehealth visits in the morning and in the afternoon. So it was prominent for those small follow-up things, but like Peter said, a lot of it is insurance issues. But I do hope it'll be more in the future, more telehealth, because I think it is nice and efficient, and oftentimes patients complain about coming in when they didn't need to, and co-pays and all of that. So hopefully it stays.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Hopefully it is here to stay. Obviously, just to piggyback off of what Peter and Aubrey said, it's going to be a little more prominent in certain specialties. Like, obviously, we're not doing telehealth with surgery. So, you know, but so I think it's just going to be a matter of like getting insurance to be able to approve that a little bit more. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you. So moving on towards gearing conversation towards flight specifically, what resources did you take advantage of as a first generation or low income student to really help you prepare you for PA school?
Do you mean this in a financial aspect, or
Say that again.
did you mean this in a financial aspect or something?
It
Or
could
what do
be
you mean?
financial or career, guiding, any sort of resources. Yeah.
Hmm. I'll let you
Oh,
go
go ahead.
first.
Um,
Go ahead.
I would say that one thing that I can say that I did was I took advantage of like my job to the best way I could, especially being a scribe and working on a team with a team of doctors and PAs. Like, right, I was able to use that as like, 1, my job, 2, my shadowing experience, and 3, like getting letters of recommendation, right? So I think it was a matter of like, okay, like put myself in positions where I know I can be the most optimal at this and like not have to like search for another thing. You know what I'm saying? Because I was like, I don't have the time. I didn't have all the resources. So I was like, okay, I need to choose something that's going to help me in the long run in a lot of aspects of my application. And it was talking to my mentor who was like encouraging me to do this and things like that. So I think that was like one aspect that I capitalized on. I would have to think a little bit about more of what I did as a pre-PA. But I would, one thing I will say is like, just put yourself in environments where you can win. Like, you know, especially, you know, that you have to get shadowing, you know, you have to get healthcare hours, you know, all of these things are going to be like things you're going to you're going to have to do it. Right. So put yourself in positions where you can be able to optimize a lot of those things at once, because if you can, then you're saving yourself a lot of time and you won't have to be like scrambling later. So
I agree with that. And in terms of like application stuff and CASPA, I personally absolutely refused to pay for any of those services before I like looked at anything free. I saw a pre-PA service recently that was supposedly, I'm not going to name names, but supposedly a full package of pre-application help for $700.
I agree with Aubrey. I don't agree with paying for any of
Whoa.
that either.
$700. And that's not a guarantee to get in anywhere. And they gave stats in their thing, and they were already students with exceptional GPAs and stuff like that. And I preach this. I tell everybody, find people around you to do things. I'm not saying you need to go and beg everybody, but find, if you have a close relationship with a PA, have them read your personal statement. Have your friend read your personal statement. Your parents, it doesn't just need to be people who know the PA profession. You want somebody also to read your like application, everything, and see if they can see that you want to be a PA and that you explain, you know, what a PA is and all that from an outsider's point of view. So I used my advisor. If your school doesn't have an advisor, I know some people have like only they're only medical related ones or only medical related clubs, but I would still say join those. They're still really great experiences. Check even your school's writing center. Sometimes they have a writing center that can help you out with your personal statement and whatnot. Ask your supervisors to read your stuff. Reach out on Instagram, you know, reach out to all of those things before. Like for mock interviews, my friend's dad works as a firefighter, and he got a couple of his coworkers to give me a couple mock interviews. So even if you do your parents' coworkers or somebody you know, just reach out to people before you pay for those ridiculous things, because oftentimes they're people that say they're, you know, credentialed or they're PAs, but they know, you know, nobody can guarantee you anything. Every admissions committee is different. So I'm not saying paying for stuff is bad, but you do not need to pay for anything to get in. I just want to make sure people know that you don't need to pay that $100-something to get your personal statement looked at. I've seen people charge for shadowing. Don't pay for shadowing. That's ridiculous. That's so sad.
How much are they charging for shadowing? I'm just curious. Not that I don't do that.
Yeah, no, I've seen like people do like $50 a day, but I saw this one website service that was $300 to shadow a PA for like 2 days for like 7 hours each or something, just ridiculously minimal. And you do not need to do that to get to where any of us are. There's ways around it. Reach out to people before you pay anything like that, because that's just crazy, and it's just capitalizing on pre-PAs that don't have the money. Everyone works minimum wage. Yeah,
I just can't believe people are actually paying for this, because as a pre-PA myself, like I would never, like I didn't have the money. Like I would be
yeah. Well, they market it as like, oh, like we have all these guaranteed, look at all the people that got in under our program and stuff like that. And it's just, I know so many people who didn't get in. I mean, got in by not doing that. That's just crazy.
The big takeaway from all this is you don't have to pay for these services. You know what I mean? If you take one thing away from this conference or this panel.
Right.
And CASPA's already like ridiculous as it is, let alone.
Right. And like Aubrey said, don't be afraid to reach out. I feel like especially social media has like brought a lot of people together. I've met so many people in the PA community on social media. So like, don't be afraid to like reach out. Like, hey, like, is it okay if I, you know, talk to you about this? I have a question. Like, as long as you're talking to them and like messaging them appropriately, professionally, I'm pretty sure people are willing to like help if they can, right? And it's like, you know, you just have to you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable a little bit, because that's literally the trajectory of medicine. So it's like, this is the first step, right? And if you know you want to be a PA, you know you want this, you have to be like, put yourself like, you know, step outside of your comfort zone a little bit to get to where you need to be, you know. And I'm big on networking. Like this conference is here for a reason, obviously, so we can share resources for you. So take advantage of that, you know, and really, really put your best foot forward and, you know, take advantage of everything given to you. So.
I guess I can add one more thing to that. Because that's great advice right there. I think, you know, Marion was saying mentorship and social media and stuff like that. I definitely would push it, and I'm not saying like do it to their DMs or my DMs or something, but I mean, it's there. I mean, you might as well take advantage of it. But mind you, you know, like, I mean, since it's so accessible, I mean, you might not get a timely response, or you might get rejected. Just don't be nasty to them, man. Some of my instant colleagues Like I'm glad it hasn't happened to me, but I hope it hasn't happened to either of them either. But I mean, don't get ugly and nasty. I mean, it's so easy to slide into the DMs and ask, PA or PA student nowadays. Like, we have to filter this, or at some point we just have to say no, we can't take any more of this burden because we have our own stuff to do, right? So I just want to leave that out there. And then what Aubrey was saying with you don't have to pay for anything. You don't have to pay for, I think in CASPA, they still have it to where people will log in your grades for you too. When I was applying, that was a service, and like, that's stupid. Like, they might mess up on, putting your grades and everything like that. Like, you want to be accountable for that. But I would want to add that since this is a like flight conference thing, like even in PA school, like don't stop hustling, like find those scholarships and make school more affordable for you. And so when I was a PA student, I wish I would have started on day one with the scholarship things, but towards the halfway point of my program, like I had 3 letter recommendation, like people that could write a letter on deck. Like I had a good rapport with them. It was a professor, previous employer, and the like chair of my program. If I ever needed a scholarship letter, I just messaged them or emailed them. They just tweaked really the name. It was the same template, I imagine, and they could just send it off. And I had like a base template for, it's a generic statement. And so I really didn't care if it really meshed with the scholarship agenda or prompt. I just wanted to throw my hat in the ring. So I was really working with, just sending out 100 applications, if you will, and just trying to get like 1 or 2 yeses. And that could be a few thousands, it all adds up and it's tax-free money. You don't have to pay it back. So, I mean, it's well worth your investment. So that'd be my strategy to you guys. Have that personal based statement to send off, and have like 2 or 3 people that you can reach out, text, email real easily, and they could just send you a letter on your behalf, and then just mass apply and apply locally, right? I mean, there's like the Coca-Cola scholarship, Tylenol, that's great, and it's a lot of money, but I mean, you're battling out with thousands and thousands of applicants. So try to find like a local hospital within your community, or a local chapter, a local church or whatever, and just fight amongst, a smaller applicant pool. I think your time is better vested in that. So that's just a little bit of my contribution.
Yeah, thank you. That was great advice, and I hope we're saving people hundreds of dollars on these unnecessary sorts of
And it's
resources.
free too, right? Right, Aubrey?
Yeah.
It's free. This is all free.
So, continuing conversation about what the flight conference is, it was really difficult navigating the college admissions process as a first generation. I can't even imagine like being pre-PA and navigating that by yourself sometimes. So what was your support system like while applying to PA school?
I guess I'll start. My support system was my mentor, Steven, and my mentor, Shamim. They were both PAs. Shamim was an ER PA, and she was one of the PAs that I scribed with often. And Steven, how I met Steven was so random, was like, I was so desperate to find someone to shadow that I like looked for PAs in my community, and like, I just sent out like letters. I was like, hey, I'm a student. I just graduated from here. This is my degree. I'm looking for, providers who I could possibly come in and shadow. And I sent out maybe like 20 letters because I couldn't find at that time, like I couldn't find any PAs. And he replied to me and he was like, you're the first person that this has ever happened, like who's ever done this. And I like that you took initiative. So come in, and it was literally like, though I was lucky, and he took me under his wing and showed me a lot. So when it came to applying to PA school, he was definitely like my number one like resource on like what I should and shouldn't do, and it was nice to have somebody like that, because it was like, okay, especially applying to PA school the first time, like there's some things like you want to make sure you're not doing. Like you want to make sure you do have all the classes for this school, or knowing that like, okay, I need semester hours versus quarter hours, or like just knowing those little tidbits will, like, you know, can eliminate a school off of your list really quickly, right? So it's just being able to, you know, have someone who's in it, you know, help you through the process will be, you know, essential. I mean, not everybody has that luxury, but like I said, like, there's social media, there's things out here, there's research, like, you know, like, you can find the information you need, but you just have to go after it. So
I would say in my journey to PA school, I think that's my biggest regret is not having really a mentor. So my freshman year, I joined the pre-PA club, and the president, we did like a CASPA workshop, and she explained CASPA to me. And then after that, I like just researched everything hardcore. So I guess I took bits and pieces from social media, from YouTube videos, and stuff like that. And I taught like myself from everybody. And then my second year, funny enough, I became a pre-PA peer mentor, and I was mentoring fifth years on CASPA. So not that I taught myself, but I wish I would have reached out or had a PA mentor to help me through that, because I'm so used to kind of doing things on my own, or like not really wanting or accepting help. I think that was a big thing, is not that I didn't have help from my parents. Obviously I've had emotional, financial, all of that support in terms of school and stuff. I've been used to fending for myself, figuring out myself, looking things up. So I did that with like my pre-PA journey, and I wish I would have that relationship. A lot of my classmates have really close relationships with PAs, with NPs and doctors, because they had that mentorship. So I can say to anybody here, like watching this, I would really recommend trying to get a mentor like that. And not doing it all by yourself. Not that it's not doable, but it's, you know, it's more challenging. So I think, and the girl I met, she was the president of the pre-PA club at that time. She's the one that did the CASP workshop. I think she's the one that initiated that. So I guess she was my mentor for a little bit, I guess you can say. But I would really wish I paired up with a PA mentor. But in terms of other supports and emotional support throughout it, I have a couple pre-PA friends that were applying, or MBKU was also one of my best friends' dream school. And so she wasn't applying at the time, but she was with me through every step of the way. I would, you know, contact her when something came, or I'd send her the email. So I had a lot of emotional support with friends and family, even if the other friends my family didn't know what exactly PA school was. They did research, which is really sweet. They figured out what a PA was, and they supported me throughout all of it. So.
I think what they were talking about with the mentors and stuff, it's so prominent and important. And for me, it was hard because, I mean, Instagram wasn't what Instagram was at the time. And so I call him my unofficial official mentor, but this dude named Ryan English, he's like I think he's the TAPA president, the Texas, you know, Association of PAs, like president. And so he's like the face of PAs for Texas, basically. Let's just call him that. But I knew him at UT Dallas whenever he was a smaller fish, and the pre-PA society over there was a lot smaller. But you know, he was only like a year or two ahead of me. He was a non-traditional student, but I would always ask him questions and whatnot, and you know, just ask away and see who's willing to, I guess, mentor you in a way. Shoot your shot, see who has available time to kind of coach you, you know, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, essentially. Like, someone is doing what you're wanting to do and already has done it. So just go out there, seek them, find, you know, try to get their help. And so I think what Marion was doing was like doing something different and trying to stand out. I mean, really just showing that, you know, you're gutsy. You know, some people just look up to that and admire that. They see them younger selves in them, and so they might take you on. So just shoot your shot out there and do find a mentor, because it really does make a huge difference in your trajectory along this PA path.
Thank you. Yeah. So with the last few minutes of tonight's workshop, what's one piece of advice that you have for pre-PA students to really stand out, to get their application looked at, and just to really stand out, especially during the time of COVID, where it feels like everybody's doing the same thing, the same 20 things even.
It's kind of hard when you tell people this, because I usually want to tell people earlier in their journey, but if you can, try to connect the dots in your application. So what I mean by that is I recognize two populations that I really want to help and really like to be, part of. So for mine was individuals with disabilities and elderly, people, patients. And so I did a lot of my different experiences within those two populations. So I did a lot of volunteering, patient care experience, or just non-medical volunteering within those two populations. And so I mentioned it on, in my personal statement, a lot in my application. And there were questions that came up in my interview that they noticed that I had these two populations and I had a lot of experience with these two populations. So I kind of had like a central theme and kind of me as a person, the applicant, and what I was interested in medicine. So it's kind of hard when you're later in your journey and whatnot, especially if you've already done a lot of your experiences. But even if you already have like a theme that you didn't notice, maybe look back at your experiences. And if you have a lot of experience with a certain population, maybe talk about that or emphasize why you chose that population. Because to them, it stood out. I was the one that was like, oh, you did the volunteering with, this group and this group and this group. And they brought it up and we talked about it. And that was a huge part of my interview and something that they noticed. So if you can do that, just try to connect the dots in your application to make you stand out as an overall person who, with these main things standing out to the application or the admissions committee.
I think,
Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, I think Aubrey hit the nail on the head. I was gonna say, like, having a theme to your application is everything, because if you can stand out with your patient care experience, your volunteer experience, your essay, like, and you can make that all connect. Mine was specifically working with underserved communities, right? So, and that's what my school was big on, right? So it's like just pulling those different experiences that, and you may not even, I didn't even think I had those experiences until I started really looking back, like, oh, I did volunteer a lot here, or I did do this, right? So I think it's that having that theme. And in the times of COVID, I know it's pretty difficult because I know a lot of places right now aren't really accepting like volunteers or allowing like shadowing. And I think programs are becoming a little understanding of that in this era right now, but it's still like, if you have the luxury to have had experience prior to COVID, still use it. But even in the times right now, you can still talk about how like, this is what I want to pursue, right? And still actively try. Hopefully within the next year, we'll, be a little more open to like things, but, not to give up, and just to like really, really put your best foot forward in whatever you do. So.
Yeah, and I would add that, yeah, it is like they're saying, it's so tough, super tough during COVID. I really feel for, these students that are applying. Everyone's shadowing hours are reduced, right? So, I mean, you guys are kind of in equal footing in that sense. But I would, man, like I said, I'm kind of like far removed, but I would want to emphasize what you did during this time, that COVID was running rampant. Like, you're attending all of these free virtual shadowing events and whatnot. I mean, you're still diligently trying to search for shadowing hours and whatnot. So, I mean, in a way, like during your personal statement, like you're still being that proactive student, right? That you're trying to still seek experience and whatnot. If you're volunteering and helping with the efforts on the forefront and things like that, or have been or had, that's great. I appreciate that too. And I mean, we all do. Add that to your personal statement, but tilt it in a direction where, I mean, you didn't give up, right? I mean, even during these pandemic times, you were still proactive and tenacious and going after it too. Okay.
Great. What a great way to end tonight. Thank you so much for all your time to our panelists. And if our attendees don't have any other questions, please give everyone a round of applause. That was I learned so much, and I'm really reinvigorated to apply to be a PA and hopefully work with you all someday too.
Yeah, I
Thank
think
you so much.
y'all are both great students, man. Y'all just, oh my gosh, I wish I was half the students y'all were. Dang.
Thank